Steelers Nation, listen up because this is the kind of moment that tests every ounce of what this team stands for. No fluff, no false optimism, no pretending everything's fine when it's not. The Pittsburgh Steelers are staring down a turning point in their season, and if something doesn't change fast, this could spiral into one of those stretches fans remember for all the wrong reasons. So let's get into it. Imagine, just hypothetically, a low-scoring slugfest where the Colts edge out the Steelers 16-14. Not because the Steelers were blown out or embarrassed, but because the same cracks that have been showing week after week finally caught up to them. You can feel it, right? That sense that this defense, once the heart of the black and gold identity, has been bleeding for far too long. And at some point, the tourniquet has to start working. The bleeding has to stop. The excuses have to stop. Something, anything, has to click to flip the script before it's too late. The funny thing is, even if the Steelers somehow crawl their way into the postseason because the rest of the division is falling apart, that doesn't mean they've fixed anything. You can scrape together wins, steal one here or there, maybe end up with one of those "we run the North" moments that look great on a t-shirt, but mean nothing in January when you're walking into Buffalo and getting served up like lambs. That's not the Steelers standard. That's not what this team is supposed to be. You can't just coast and hope things turn around. You have to find real answers. And maybe, just maybe, that starts this week against the #1 team in football, the Indianapolis Colts. They're 7-1 for a reason. They do everything right. They put up points, and they're relentless. They're not one-dimensional like some teams you can scheme against. They'll run it down your throat with Jonathan Taylor, and that offensive line gives their quarterback all the time in the world. But if the Steelers can somehow hold that offense to 16 points, you've done something right. You force them to work for every yard, you've made them sweat, and maybe you've even stolen a takeaway or two along the way. And while that might not look flashy on the scoreboard, it could be the kind of game that resets everything. The kind of performance that reminds this locker room that they can still play tough, fundamental football. Because right now, it's not about the final result. Whether you win 40-38 or lose by a field goal, the bigger question is, does this team look like it knows what it's doing? Do the players look confident in the scheme? Do they look connected, focused, and hungry? That's what matters. Because you can celebrate a close win for an hour, but deep down, you'll still know if it's hollow. The only way this season turns around is if that defense starts playing with purpose again. And for that to happen, the message from the coaching staff has to get through. Teryl Austin talked recently about possibly simplifying things on defense, and that might be exactly what they need. Strip it down. Go back to basics. Enough of the overcomplicated calls that have defenders second-guessing instead of reacting. When you've got guys like Patrick Queen out there trying to solve quantum physics before the snap, that's a problem. These players want to fly to the football, not overthink it. Will that simplicity make them more predictable against elite coordinators like Shane Steichen? Absolutely. They might get burned on a few plays. But you know what? That's fine. Because sometimes you have to take a step back to move forward. You'd rather have a unit that's aggressive and confident in what it's doing than one that's lost and hesitant. That's how you start to rebuild trust on that side of the ball. And maybe that's what sparks something heading into Los Angeles next week. Maybe this game against the Colts becomes that moment when the Steelers say enough. Enough of the confusion. Enough of the excuses. Enough of the disconnection. This isn't about statistics or highlight reels. It's about foundation. It's about pride. And yeah, maybe Chris Boswell ends up being the difference maker again because he's been one of the few steady hands on this team for years now. But even then, this isn't about one kick, one drive, or one game. It's about getting back to who the Pittsburgh Steelers are supposed to be. The toughness, the discipline, the swagger. None of that comes from luck. It comes from preparation, execution, and belief. Now, some fans are already calling for changes at the top of the defense, wondering if another loss could mean Teryl Austin's job. I get it. Emotions are high, but firing a coordinator mid-season isn't a magic fix. Mike Tomlin's never called defensive plays in the NFL. That's not his role. He's the motivator, the tone setter, the guy who runs the ship. And if you take away your coordinator right now, who steps in? Who actually takes over the play calling? There's no clear replacement in that room. When Matt Canada was fired last season, that situation was different. There were experienced assistants ready to step in, and the offensive players rallied behind them. That spark carried them into the playoffs. But defensively, that infrastructure just isn't there right now. You can't fire someone just to make a statement when there's no plan to move forward. The reality is this. The Steelers have to fix what they already have. They have to build from within. And that's not just about coaching. It's about confidence. Because whether anyone admits it or not, this defense has been rattled. Not necessarily as individuals, but as a collective. The trust in the system, in the communication, in the execution, it's shaky. You can see it in the missed tackles, the blown coverages, the late reactions. That's not a lack of talent. That's a lack of belief. And rebuilding that belief doesn't happen in 1 week, but it has to start somewhere. Maybe it starts here, against a team that's expected to steamroll you. Maybe this is the moment where they take those hits, hold their ground, and rediscover their identity. Because that's what it's going to take to salvage this season. Forget playoff scenarios or division math. Forget about other teams losing. The only way forward is to play better football, to get back to the basics, to trust the process, and to believe that what they're doing still matters. When you really think about it, this moment defines what kind of team the Steelers want to be moving forward. Not just for this season, but for the culture they're trying to rebuild. Because it's not about making the playoffs by accident. It's about proving you deserve to be there. It's about playing football that actually looks like Pittsburgh football again. Physical, relentless, and proud. And the scary truth is that for the first time in a long time, that identity feels lost. Somewhere between the missed assignments, the predictable blitzes, and the constant defensive breakdowns, this team forgot how to dominate. You can feel it on the sideline. You can see it in the players' eyes, that hesitation, that uncertainty. It's not that they've stopped caring. It's that they've stopped believing. And that's a much harder thing to fix than any excess in OS. The coaches keep saying they're reviewing everything, cutting back certain things, maybe simplifying others, but none of that means anything if the players don't buy in. Football, especially in a city like Pittsburgh, isn't just about schemes. It's about emotion. It's about 11 guys flying to the ball with one heartbeat. Right now, the Steelers don't look like they're playing with one heartbeat. They look like a collection of frustrated individuals trying to make up for each other's mistakes. That's not how this franchise built its legacy. It's not how you win in December and January when everything's on the line. And Mike Tomlin knows that. He's never been the kind of coach who panics. But even he must see that this team needs more than just adjustments. It needs a pulse. That's why this next stretch of games matters so much more than just wins and losses. Facing a powerhouse like Indianapolis could either expose every weakness or reignite every ounce of pride left in that locker room. And if you want to find out what a team's made of, you face adversity head on. This is the moment when the leaders have to speak up. Guys like TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Cam Hayward. They've seen it all. They've been through rough stretches before. They know what it means to play for the logo on that helmet. Now, they have to remind everyone else. Because right now, it's not just about stopping Jonathan Taylor or slowing down their quarterback. It's about stopping the doubt. It's about showing every young player in that room that wearing the black and gold means something. There's no question that the defense has been overcomplicated. Too many adjustments, too many layers of communication breaking down at the worst times. You can see players out of sync, a half step late, unsure of where the help is supposed to come from. That's the kind of confusion that kills defenses, no matter how talented they are. Simplifying things isn't about dumbing it down. It's about letting guys do what they do best. Patrick Queen doesn't need to overthink. He needs to attack. Joey Porter Jr. doesn't need to be reading 3 different route combinations. He needs to trust his instincts and play with confidence. If the staff can get back to that philosophy, you might start to see that spark again. And let's be honest, the offense hasn't exactly been helping. When your defense is on the field for 40 minutes a game, even the best units start to wear down. You can't keep expecting them to bail the team out when they're exhausted and the offense can't sustain drives. That balance has to return. Arthur Smith needs to find a rhythm that gives this defense a chance to breathe, some quick, efficient drives, a commitment to the run, whatever it takes to control the clock and let the defense reset. Because right now, they're playing like a team that's constantly in damage control mode, and that's not sustainable. The fan base feels it too. You can hear it in every call, every post, every Sunday night rant. Steelers fans aren't asking for perfection. They're asking for fight. They want to see a team that looks like it gives everything, win or lose. That's the heartbeat of this city, toughness and effort. And if the players start showing that again, the fans will respond. But if this keeps feeling like a team sleepwalking through the motions, that disconnect will only grow louder. Pittsburgh doesn't tolerate passive football. Never has, never will. Now, about all that talk of firing Terrell Austin, look, it's easy to call for heads to roll when things aren't going right. But that doesn't fix anything in the middle of the season. You can't just rip out the engine and expect the car to keep running. There's no magical play caller waiting in the wings. This is the staff they have, and they're the ones who have to figure out. That's not giving them a free pass. That's reality. If anything, it means every coach on that sideline has to dig deeper. The defense isn't just fighting the opponent right now. They're fighting doubt, fatigue, and frustration. The only way out of that is through unity. And maybe, when the dust settles, we'll look back and see that this was the turning point. The week when the team decided enough was enough. When the veterans stepped up, the young guys started believing, and the defense remembered how to play like the Steelers again. Because despite all the issues, the talent is there. The leadership is there. The foundation just needs to be rebuilt one stop at a time. And if they can do that, if they can claw their way back to that old-school Steelers mentality, then maybe this season isn't lost after all. Maybe this team can still make some noise, not because the division is weak, but because they finally found themselves again. That's the real challenge ahead. Not just surviving these next games, but proving they still belong among the toughest teams in football. The score will take care of itself if they can get back to playing their brand of football. Fast, physical, and fearless. Because when the Steelers play like that, no one wants to line up across from them. And that's what has to return. That's what has to start now. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers have been circulating across the NFL landscape, and the latest buzz has shaken the very foundations of the AFC North. Derrick Henry, the unstoppable force of Tennessee, might be heading to Pittsburgh. While nothing has been officially confirmed, sources close to the Steelers' front office hint that a blockbuster move could be in the works, and if it happens, it could redefine the Steelers' running game entirely. Henry, known for his sheer power, breakaway speed, and ability to turn a short gain into a highlight reel touchdown, has long been the nightmare of opposing defenses. Over the past seasons, he has consistently dominated, racking up yards and leaving tacklers grasping at air. Imagine that kind of impact merging with the Steelers' traditionally stout offensive line. Rumor has it, Pittsburgh fans are already dreaming of a ground game that rivals the league's elite. Sources close to the locker room suggest that the Steelers' coaching staff has been quietly restructuring offensive schemes to accommodate a back who demands both respect and attention from defenses. The potential synergy is tantalizing, a line built for power running, a quarterback capable of managing the game, and Henry, perhaps the most feared back in modern NFL history, plowing through defenders like a freight train. Street chatter even hints at secret meetings in Pittsburgh, where executives reportedly discussed the possibility of creating a Henry-centric offense that could tilt the balance of power in the AFC. If this deal goes through, Henry's arrival wouldn't just be a boost for the Steelers' ground attack. It could also send shockwaves across the league. Opposing coordinators would have to rethink defensive strategies, preparing for a back who combines speed, strength, and an almost supernatural ability to break tackles. The burble in bars, social media threads, and podcasts is growing louder. Could this be the season Pittsburgh becomes unstoppable on the ground? As the rumor mill heats up, one thing is clear. Derrick Henry's name is being whispered in the Steel City with reverence and excitement. Whether this move is a strategic masterstroke or just another tantalizing possibility, the mere thought of Henry charging through Heinz Field has fans and analysts alike buzzing. If Pittsburgh manages to lock him down, the NFL landscape might never look the same again. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.